Hi, before we get started on Starving Zoe, I should warn you that this book was written to be historically accurate. So some listeners may find parts of it to be offensive because the language, etc., etc. It may not be very pleasant to modern ears. However, and this is part of why he lost his job is I think Zoe's like 14 or something. Bear in mind, he's from the United States. He's from Texas. I don't know what the legal marriage age in Texas is, but in Massachusetts it's like 12 or something. And I was nearly married off just to get away from my parents when I was 15. So I obviously didn't get married, but you know, it's not unusual in the United States for child marriages to take place even today, but at the time apparently it was much more common. And then, as I say, there's some very inappropriate language that people may find somewhat inappropriate and offensive for today's modern standards. However, in 1865, which was says the American Civil War was officially over, so we give you a bit of an idea of when this is taking place. That was perfectly acceptable and appropriate language. So, right, I hope you enjoy. Hi, and welcome to Story Time. My name's Dani Brown, although you might know me as the Queen of Filth. I prefer to be called Queenie, though, because that sounds much better than the Queen of Filth. And welcome to a very special edition of Story Time. My front room has been done. It's nearly completely finished. But I still don't have lights and a proper tripod. I'm using a very old tripod that used to work very well with my iPhone SE, and that was like the first edition SE. Why? Because we've got Starving Zoe, and this is by Derick Miller, and it's been causing a bit of a storm over the past few days over on social media, and the author has unfortunately lost his job driving train at Six Flags over Texas. And because of some controversy in this book, bear in mind the author is not his characters. And I've been speaking out against this since before my first book was published in 2014. I've been speaking out against this for years, like since probably late 2008, early 2009, so long before I had anything published. And, you know, maybe if people bothered to listen to me, Derick Miller would still be driving the train at Six Flags, which he, you know, greatly enjoyed, just like I enjoy my career in marketing when I'm not, you know, working in horror. So let's get right onto the story. The author is not his characters, and I've skimmed through part of this. I'm not a great fan of splatter westerns, although I did enjoy what I was skimming, so I might give them a second chance, because it, you know, it read differently. And to be honest with you, when I first read The Dark Tower, I had to start about 3 or 4 times because it does start as a western, and now it's like my favorite book. So maybe I'll like these. Obviously, I don't have any lighting yet. As you can see, I am backlit from my window. You can see all my cuddly toys behind me because they bring me happiness. So let's get on to the story. And you can read yet another rant for me about reading too much into things on my website. And I'll post all the links below. So thank you for joining me today. I'm going to start with chapter 2. This is probably going to be a bit of a long one. I don't know if I'll get through the whole chapter, though. I will try. Reading out loud is not my specialty. Really, I screamed at my idiot horse as he halted yet again to drink from a small stream. We are literally 5 miles away from my godforsaken house, and you're stopping to drink again. I could see the lights in the windows from here. The poor cross-eyed bastard looked back at me as though a single rational thought failed to exist within his pea-sized brain. Stupid animal. He'd done nothing but eat and spray feces since we crossed into the Arizona territory, and I was sick of it. Sometimes he'd be doing both at the same time. How can you even do that? The smell of fresh dung hung wafting up your nose while you were chewing on the grass. With a nose that big, it made me gag just thinking about it. All I wanted to do was get home. No, sir. All he was interested in doing was licking any puddle of wetness his slanted vision picked up on, and then drop a pile of the most foul-smelling waste imaginable in our wake. The beast was probably lapping up his own piss and didn't even Know it. Goddamn poon. 4 years absence from my sweet Zoe was long enough without having to deal with this equine manure machine on the edge of my own property. My left hand held tight to my right wrist, preventing me from reaching for my gun. I had no problem walking the rest of the way, but in the grand scheme of things, a man never knows when he'll need a fast getaway. A horse would be a handy tool in such situations. Any horse but this one. I jest you not. I was attempting to make up for lost time a few nights ago when this four-legged science experiment of God gone horribly wrong slowed his run to a near crawl. Suddenly, I heard a rustle in the underbrush below me and thought the dumb animal had somehow managed to trample through a nest of rattlesnakes. Then he came to a complete stop, no longer hearing the disturbance in the brush. I jumped down from my saddle to see how to solve his newest quirk. The horse was galloping with a hard-on and somehow managed to get his dick jammed in between two rocks. I swear to Jesus on a stack of Bibles that's what happened. I didn't want to touch the veiny protrusion, so I began smacking it with the butt of my Colt pistol. Smacked that son of a bitch so hard I thought it would break in half. No, sir, that's not what happened at all. Old Poon commenced to shaking and shimmering like he was on the verge of having the mother of all seizures. Then splat! The four-legged abomination let go of a wad of horse shot all over the rocks, and I jumped backwards like I just discovered a stack of explosives. Before too long, his ugly stick slithered back inside its sheath, and he continued to trot again. Idiot just started walking like nothing ever happened. I wasn't even on his back. Would have shot him dead in his tracks if I wasn't in such a hurry to make it home. There's a special place in hell reserved for this horse, but I refuse to be the one who sends him there. All I wanted to do was climb into bed next to Zoe Telos Jack. Nothing was going to stop me, not even this horny, piss-drinking, cross-eyed horse. Dozens of war-driven nightmares came flooding into my head the second I crossed the boundary into what I hoped was still my land. I hadn't received any letters from Zoe for nearly a year now. My head swam with the possibilities. Dangerous waters, the ones in your own head. Worse than which exist in the real world. All of them full of gators and snakes and dark as mud. They stir up all the bad thoughts no one wants to think about. No one with half a brain anyway. No, Zoe was quite the correspondent for the first few years of my absence. Always sure to tell me everything going on in the northern Arizona territory that I missed. The one-handed judge didn't live too much longer after my departure, but she never explained one way or the other if it was her own handiwork. Didn't want the Pony Express to get bored on one of their long rides and turn up looking for any reward money being offered. Hell, the government was still hesitant to bring the land into statehood for all the rogue Indians running loose. They were marching and shipping them by train into New Mexico and Oklahoma as fast as they could, but it just wasn't quick enough. In her last letter, Zoe even wrote that she made friends with a family of Indians and was trading their protection for a little spot in the pines to stay safe from the troops. That's what worried me the most. Sure, the Redskins were protecting my wife from the woodland, from the wildlife and bandits, but who was protecting her from the Indians? Something told me I'd run into some of them soon enough, and it wasn't going to be a pleasant meeting either. Not that I had anything against them personally, but the color of someone's skin wouldn't stop me from putting the whoop on ones responsible for breaking up my happy home. That home was all that kept me going over the last few years, and it would take a bad son of a bitch to snatch it out from under my wayward feet. I led Poon through the shallows of the, I think that's pronounced Verde River, and damn near fell off the son of a bitch in amazement. He didn't even attempt to lower his head into the cool flowing water for a taste. The idiot had no problem whatsoever slurping up his own salty piss. But the clean water from that river was completely off limits. Crazy, I tell you. Either his parents were overbred to the point of insanity, or his previous owner beat him about his head until pure stupidity took hold for good. Goddamn Poon. The midnight moon was dangling high in the sky when I crept up the wraparound porch to my own front door. I couldn't help but utilize all the perks the surrounding forest had to offer when I built our little love nest. No, sir, anything my sweet Zoe wanted, she got. I didn't care how long it took. I planned on making her every dream come true the second I picked up that hammer for the first time. My blood, my sweat, and tears stained the wood of that porch, and if you look closely enough in broad daylight, You could see exactly what I was talking about. Little droplets of my hard work became a part of this place with every swing of that damned hammer and curse word uttered. I eased off my dusty boots as stealthily as possible and placed my hole-covered socks on the frigid lumber. A sigh of relief, the likes of which I didn't think possible, exited my smiling mouth and alerted Poon. He jerked his head up hard against the secured reins and damn near pulled the hitching post from the ground. Maybe, if I repeated the process a few times, he would break his own neck. At least I wouldn't have to live with the guilt of killing him myself. Keep quiet, stupid. I shushed the poor beast, but all he could do was stare at me blankly with his cross-eyed gaze. Somewhere on my gun belt was a bullet with his name on it, but not tonight. A gunshot in the darkness was a sure way to get my sweet Zoe out of bed, and probably get me shot as well. She was never one to hesitate on the trigger of that rifle. To boot, my bride hadn't the slightest idea I was coming home. Absolutely, she put a hole right between my own two eyes, making me look no better than that Poon horse. I was going to sit there on that porch and contemplate the best course of action when it came to her finding out her husband was home for good. I just hoped the war hadn't spoiled my good looks any. There weren't too many mirrors between my home and the front lines, and for all I knew, I currently resembled some type of rabid beast. My creaking, war-torn bones cracked as I got to my feet. The glow from a half-extinguished fire filled the main room, throwing unrecognizable shadows in all directions against the wall. And I'm going to leave it there. So thank you so much for listening. If you want to support Derick Miller, you can contact Six Flags Over Texas, and tell them it's just not acceptable to project the author's characters onto the author, and that's dangerous. And I've spoken of that before, and there's more about that on my website. And I will keep speaking up, and I will keep, campaigning for things to change, because authors aren't what we write. Just like, have you all listened to the Beatles? Hear that song, I Am the Walrus? Do you really think there's yellow matter custard dripping from a dead dog's eye? Lovely bit of songwriting, yes. Lyrics don't make any sense. If you don't want to support the Beatles because of what John Lennon did to his wife, and there was no indication of that in his songs, then check out Nick Kershaw, whose lyrics are just as ridiculous in some places. Some of them actually make sense, but I can't remember the name of the song, but it is on my website somewhere because I do reference it. So thank you so much. Next week we have Necro Sutra by the one and only Kevin Sweeney. I haven't skimmed through that one yet, so I might have to grab a bucket for my vomit while I'm reading, because sometimes Kevin's books, they tend to traumatize me, and I'm known for writing torture porn. So the fact that somebody's writing stuff that is somewhat disturbing to me is my first book published was reviewed as torture porn. Sometimes my stories have warnings saying, if you can't handle torture porn, don't read this. And I struggle with some of his stuff because it's just so horrible. So thank you so much, and I will see you next week. Bye bye.